I'm Oscar Wilde. And no, really, I am. And welcome to Circle Performing Arts Alliance at our new space. I just wanted to tell you to turn off all your cell phones and electronic devices or set them to silent. You're probably wondering how I know what a cell phone is. Well, let's just say I've done a bit of time travel in my day that may or may not have involved a blue call box appearing in my backyard. And in my travels through different eras, I've also come across many different decades of fascination. One such decade was the 1920s, which I thought would be a fitting setting for this production you are about to see. So sit back, relax, enjoy a cup of tea, or rather coffee for you Americans, and enjoy this production of An Ideal Husband.
Going on to the Heart Locks tonight, Olivia?
Oh, I suppose so. Are you?
Yes, horribly tedious parties they give, don't they?
Horribly tedious. Never know why I go. Never know why I go anywhere.
I come here to be educated.
Ugh, I hate being educated.
So do I. It puts one almost on a level of the commercial classes, doesn't it? But dear Gertrude Shilton is always telling me I should try to find some purpose in life. So I come here to try to find one.
Oh, I don't see anybody here tonight whom one could possibly call a serious purpose. The man who took me into dinner talked to me about his wife the whole time.
How very trivial of him.
Terribly trivial. What did your man talk about?
About myself.
And were you interested?
Not in the smallest degree.
Oh, what martyrs we are, dear Margaret.
How well becomes us, Olivia.
Lord Caversham.
Good evening, Lady Shilton. Has my good-for-nothing young son been here?
I don't think Lord Goring has arrived yet. Why do you call Lord Goring good for nothing?
He leads such an idle life.
How can you say such a thing? Why, he rides in the row at 10 o'clock in the morning, goes to the opera 3 times a week, changes his clothes at least 5 times a day, and dines out every night of the season. You don't call that leading an idle life, do you?
You are a very charming young lady.
How sweet of you to say that, Lord Caversham. Do come to us more often. You know, we are always at home on Wednesdays, and you look so well with your star.
I never go anywhere now. I'm sick of London society. Shouldn't mind being sat down by my own tailor. At dinner, he always votes the right side. Would object strongly being introduced to my wife's milliner. Never could stand Lady Caversham's bonnets.
I love London society. I think it has immensely improved. It is entirely composed of beautiful idiots and brilliant lunatics. Just what society should be.
Which one is Goring, the brilliant lunatic, the other one?
I have been obliged for the present to put Lord Goring into a class quite by himself. But he is developing charmingly.
And to what?
I hope to let you know very soon, Lord Caversham.
Mrs. Cheverly.
Ah, my dear, so kind of you to let me bring my friend, Mrs. Cheverly. 2 such charming women should know each other.
I think Mrs. Cheverly and I have met before. I did not know she had married a second time.
Ah, nowadays people marry as often as they can. It's most fashionable.
But have we really met before, Lady Shilton? I can't remember where. I've been out of England for so long.
We were at school together, Mrs. Cheverly.
Indeed. I've forgotten all about my school days. I had a vague impression that they were detestable.
I am not surprised.
Do you know, I am quite looking forward to meeting your clever husband. Since he's been at the Foreign Office, he's been so much talked of in Vienna. They actually succeed in spelling his name right in the newspaper. That in itself is fame on the continent.
I hardly think that there will be much in common between you and my husband, Mrs. Shepley.
Ah, chère madame! Quelle Louise! I have not seen you since Berlin.
Not since Berlin became 5 years ago.
And you are younger and more beautiful than ever. How do you manage?
By making it a rule only to speak to perfectly charming people like yourself.
Oh, you flatter me. You butter me, as they say here.
Do they say that here? How dreadful of them.
Oui, they have such a wonderful language. It should be more widely known.
Good evening, Lady Markby. I hope you have brought Sir John with you.
Oh, I have brought a much more charming person than Sir John. Sir John's temper, since he's taken seriously to politics, has become quite unbearable. Really, now that the House of Commons is trying to become useful, it does a great deal of harm.
I hope not, Lady Markby. At any rate, we do our best to waste the public's time. Who is this charming person that you have been so kind to bring to us?
Mrs. Shoveley, one of the Dorchester Sheveleys, I suppose. But I really don't know. Indeed, as a rule, everyone turns out to be someone else.
Mrs. Cheveley, I seem to know the name.
She's just arrived from Vienna.
Ah, I think I know whom you mean.
She goes everywhere there and has such pleasant scandals about all her friends. I really must go to Vienna next winter. I hope there's a good chef at the embassy.
And if there is not, then the ambassador certainly will have to be recalled. But pray, point out this Mrs. Cheveley to me. I should like to see her.
Let me introduce you. My dear, Sir Robert Shilton is dying to know you.
Everyone is dying to meet the brilliant Mrs. Cheveley. Our attaches at Vienna write to us of nothing else.
Thank you, Sir Robert. An acquaintance that begins with a compliment is sure to develop into a real friendship. It starts in the right manner. And I find that I know Lady Shilton already.
Really?
Yes. She has just reminded me that we were at school together. I remember it perfectly now. She always got the good conduct prize. I have a distinct recollection of Lady Shilton always getting a good conduct prize.
And what kind of prizes did you get, Mrs. Cheveley?
My prizes came later on in life. I don't think any of them were for good conduct. I forget.
Sure they were for something charming.
I'm not sure that women are always rewarded for being charming. I think they are usually punished for it. I mean, certainly, more women grow old nowadays through the faithfulness of their admirers than through anything else. At least that's the only way I can account for the terribly haggard look of most of your pretty women in London.
What an appalling philosophy that sounds. To attempt to classify you, Mrs. Cheveley, will be an impertinence. But may I ask, at heart, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Those seem to be the only two fashionable religions left to us nowadays.
Oh, I'm neither. Optimism begins with a broad grin, and pessimism ends with blue spectacles. Besides, they are both of them merely poses.
You prefer to be natural.
Sometimes, but it is such a difficult pose to keep up.
What would these modern psychological novelists, to whom we hear so much about, say to such a theory as that?
The strength of women comes from the fact that psychology cannot explain us. Men can be analyzed, women merely adored.
You think science cannot grapple with the problem of women?
Science can never grapple with their rational. That is why it has no future before it in this world.
And women represent the irrational.
Well-dressed women do.
I fear I can hardly agree with you, but do sit down. But may I ask, what makes you leave your brilliant Vienna for our gloomy London? Or is the question indiscreet?
Questions are never indiscreet. Answers sometimes are.
But may I ask, is it politics or pleasure?
Politics are my only pleasure. You see, nowadays it is not fashionable to flirt till one is 40, or to be romantic till one is 45, so we poor women who are under 30, or say we are, have nothing open to us but politics or philanthropy. And philanthropy to me seems to be simply the refuge of people who wish to annoy their fellow creatures. I prefer politics. I think they're more becoming.
Political life is a noble career.
Sometimes, and sometimes it is a clever game, Sir Robert, and sometimes it is a great nuisance.
Which do you find it?
A combination of all three.
Allow me.
Thank you.
But you haven't told me what makes you honor London so suddenly. Our season's almost over.
No, I don't care about the London season. It is too matrimonial. People are either hunting for husbands or hiding from them. I wanted to meet you. It is quite true. Do you know what a woman's curiosity is? Almost as great as a man's. I wanted immensely to meet you and to ask you to do something for me.
Hope it is not a little thing, Mrs. Chevalier. I find little things are very difficult to do.
Oh no, I don't think it is quite a little thing.
I'm so glad. Tell me what it is.
Later on. And now may I walk through your beautiful house? I hear your pictures are very charming. Poor Baron Arnheim. You remember the Baron, don't you? Used to tell me you had some wonderful corals.
Did you know Baron Arnheim well?
Intimately, did you?
At one time?
Wonderful man, wasn't he?
He was very remarkable in many ways.
I often think it's such a pity he never wrote his memoirs. They would have been most interesting.
Yes, he knew men and cities well, like the old Greek.
Without the dreadful disadvantage of a Penelope waiting at home for him.
Lord Goring.
Good evening, my dear Arthur. Mrs. Chevalier, allow me to introduce you to Lord Goring, the idlest man in London.
Oh, I've met Lord Goring before.
I did not think you would remember me, Mrs. Chevalier.
Oh, my memory is under admirable control. And are you still a bachelor?
I believe so.
Oh, very romantic.
Oh, I am not at all romantic. I am not old enough. I leave romance to my seniors.
Lord Goring is the result of the Boodoo's Club.
He reflects every credit on the institution.
May I ask, are you staying in London long?
Well, that depends. Partly on the weather, partly on the cooking, and partly on Sir Robert.
You're not going to plunge us into a European war, I hope.
There is no danger at present.
New message is received for Laurel.
You are very late.
Have you missed me?
Awfully.
Then I am sorry I did not stay away longer. I like being missed.
How very selfish of you.
I am very selfish.
You are always telling me of your bad qualities, Lord Goring.
I have only told you half of them as yet, Miss Mabel.
Are the others very bad?
Quite dreadful. When I think of them at night, I go to sleep at once.
Well, I delight in your bad qualities. I wouldn't have you part with one of them.
How very nice of you. But then you were always nice. By the way, I want to ask you a question, Miss Mabel. Who brought Mrs. Chevalier here? That woman in heliotrope who was just going out of the room with your brother.
Oh, I think Lady Margaret brought her. Why do you ask?
I haven't seen her for years, that is all.
What an absurd reason.
All reasons are absurd.
What sort of woman is she?
Oh, genius in the daytime and a beauty at night.
I dislike her already.
That's you. Your admirable good taste.
Ah, the English young lady is the dragon of good taste, is she not? Yes, quite the dragon of good taste.
So the newspapers are always telling us.
I read all your English newspapers. I find them so amusing.
Then, my dear Nanya, you must certainly read between the lines.
I should like to, but my professor objects. May I have the pleasure of escorting you to the music room, mademoiselle?
Delighted. Quite delighted. Aren't you coming to the music room?
Not if there is any music going on, Miss Mabel.
The music is in German. You would not understand it.
No, there you are. Wasting your time as usual. You should be in bed, sir. You keep till late hours. Heard of you the other night at Lady Rufford's, dancing till 4 o'clock in the morning.
It's only 4:15, Father.
Can't make out how you can stand London society. The thing has gone on for the dogs, a bunch of nobodies, talking about nothing at all.
I love talking about nothing at all. It's the only thing I know anything about.
You seem to be living entirely for pleasure.
Well, what else is there to live for, Father? Nothing ages like happiness.
You are heartless, sir. Very heartless.
I hope not, Father. Good evening, Lady Basildon.
Are you here? I had no idea you ever came to political parties.
Oh, I adore political parties. They are the only place left to us where people don't talk politics.
I don't like talking politics. I talk them all day long, but I can't bear listening to them. I don't know how the unfortunate men in the House stand these long debates.
By never listening.
That accounts for so much in men I never understood, and so much in women their husbands never appreciate in them.
Our husbands never appreciate anything in us. We have to go to others for that.
Yes, always to others, have we not?
And those are the views of the two ladies who are known to have the most admirable husbands in London.
That's exactly what we can't stand. Sir John is quite hopelessly faultless. He really is unendurably so at times. There's not the smallest element of excitement in knowing him.
Oh, how terrible. Really, the thing should be more widely known.
Basildon is quite as bad. He's as domestic as if he was a bachelor.
My dear Olivia, we have married the perfect husbands and we are well punished for it.
I should have thought it was the husbands who were punished.
Oh no, they are as happy as possible. Now, as for trusting us, it's tragic how much they trust us.
Perfectly tragic.
Or comically, Basildon.
Certainly not comic, Lord Goring. How unkind of you to suggest such a thing.
Lord Goring is in the camp of the enemy as usual, but I saw him speaking to Miss Cheveley when she came in.
Handsome woman, Mrs. Cheveley.
I hope you don't praise women in our presence. You might wait for us to do that.
I did wait.
Anyway, she told me on Monday night she went to the opera, and at supper she told Tommy Rufford, as far as she could see, London society was entirely made up of dowdies and dandies.
Well, she is quite right, too. The men are all dowdies and the women are all dandies, aren't they?
Oh, I don't think that's what Mrs. Cheveley meant, do you?
Of course, and a very sensible remark for Mrs. Cheveley to make, too.
Why are you talking about Mrs. Cheveley? Everybody is talking about Mrs. Cheveley. Lord Goring says, what did you say, Lord Goring, about Mrs. Cheveley? Oh, yes, I remember. And she was a genius in the daytime and a beauty at night.
What a horrid combination. So very unnatural.
I like looking at geniuses and listening to beautiful people.
Oh, that is morbid of you, Lady Markby.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. Sir John and I have been married many years. He's never once told me I was morbid. Men can be so painfully unobservant at times.
I've always said, dear Margaret, that you are the most morbid person in London.
Ah, but you're always so sympathetic, Olivia.
Is it morbid to have a desire for food? I have a great desire for food. Lord Goring, will you give me some supper?
With pleasure, Miss Mabel.
How horrid you have been. You have never talked to me the whole evening.
How could I? You went away with the child diplomatist.
You might have followed us. Pursuit would have been only polite. I don't think I like you at all this evening.
I like you immensely.
Well, I wish you'd show it in a more marked way.
My dear Olivia, I have a curious feeling of absolute faintness. I think I should like some supper very much. I know I should like some supper.
I'm positively dying for supper, Margaret.
Men are so horribly selfish. They never think of these things.
Men are grossly material. Grossly material.
May I have the pleasure of escorting you to supper, Comtesse?
I never take supper, Vicomte. But I will come down with you with pleasure.
I am so fond of eating. I am very English in all my tastes.
You look quite English, Vicomte. Quite English.
Like some supper, Lady Markby?
Oh, no, thank you, Mr. Mumford. I never touch supper. But I will sit beside you and watch you.
I don't know that I like being watched while I'm eating.
Then I will watch someone else.
I don't know that I should like that either.
Pray, Mr. Mumford, do not make such painful scenes of jealousy in public.
Are you going to any of our country houses before you leave England, Mrs. Cheveley?
Oh no. I can't stand your English house parties. In England, people actually try to be brilliant at breakfast. That is so dreadful of them. Only dull people are brilliant at breakfast. And then a family skeleton is always reading family prayer. My stay in England really depends on you, Sir Robert.
Seriously?
I'm quite serious. I want to interest you in a great political and financial scheme about this Argentine Canal Company, in fact.
What a tedious practical subject for you to talk about, Mrs. Cheveley.
Oh, I don't mind tedious practical subjects, but I don't like our tedious practical people. There's a wide difference. Besides, you're interested, I know, in international canal schemes. You were Lord Radley's secretary, weren't you, when the government bought the Suez Canal shares?
Yes, but the Suez Canal was a very great and splendid undertaking. It gave us our direct route to India. It had imperial value. It was necessary that we should have control. This Argentine scheme is nothing but a commonplace stock exchange swindle.
A speculation, Sir Robert. A brilliant, daring speculation.
Believe me, Mrs. Cheveley, it is a swindle. Let us call things by their proper names. It makes matters simple. We have all the information about it at the Foreign Office. In fact, I have sent out a special commission to inquire of the matter privately, and they report that the works are hardly begun. And as far as the money subscribed, no one knows what to think of it. The whole affair is a second Panama without a quarter of a chance of success, as that miserable affair had. I hope you have not invested in it. Sure, you are far too clever to have done that.
I have invested very largely in it.
Who could have advised you to do such a foolish thing?
Your old friend and mine,
Who?
Baron Arnheim.
Ah, yes. I remember reading at the time of his death that he was mixed up in the whole affair.
It was his last romance, his last but one to do him justice.
But you haven't seen our chorals yet. The chorals are in the music room. Chorals go great with music, don't they? May I show them to you?
I am not in the mood tonight for silver twilights or rose pink dawns. I want to talk business.
I fear I have no advice to offer you except to interest you in something less dangerous. The success of the canal, of course, depends on the attitude of England, and I'm going to lay the special commissioner's report before the House tomorrow night.
And you mustn't do that. In your own interest, Sir Robert, to say nothing of mine, you must not do that.
In my own interest? My dear Mrs. Shepley, what do you mean?
Sir Robert, I will be quite frank with you. I want you to withdraw the report that you intend to lay before the House on grounds that you have reasons to believe that the commissioners have been prejudiced or misinformed or something like that. Then I want you to say a few words to the effect that the government is going to reconsider the question and that you have reasons to believe that the canal, if completed, will be of great international value. You know the sort of thing ministers say in cases of this kind? A few ordinary platitudes will do. In modern life, nothing produces such an effect as a good platitude. It makes everything simpler. Will you do that for me?
You are not serious in making me such a proposition.
I am quite serious.
Pray allow me to believe you are not.
But I am. And if you do what I ask, I shall pay you very handsomely.
Pay me.
Yes.
I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean.
How very disappointing. And I've come all the way from Vienna in order that you should thoroughly understand me.
I fear I don't.
So, Robert, you are a man of the world, and you have your own price, I suppose. Everybody has nowadays. The drawback is that everyone is so dreadfully expensive. I know I am. I hope you will be more reasonable in your terms.
If you will allow me, I will call your carriage. You have lived abroad so long, Mrs. Shepley, that you are unable to realize that you are talking to an English gentleman.
I realize that I'm talking to a man who laid the foundation of his fortune by selling to a stock exchange speculator a cabinet secret.
What do you mean?
I mean that I know the origin of your wealth and career, and I've got your letter too.
What letter?
The letter you wrote to Baron Arnheim when you were Lord Radley's secretary, telling the Baron to buy the Suez Canal shares. A letter written 3 days before the government announced its own purchase.
It's not true.
How foolish of you. You thought that letter had been destroyed? It is in my possession.
The affair of what you speak of is nothing more than a speculation.
It was a swindle, Sir Robert. Let us call things by their proper names. It makes everything simpler. And now I am going to sell you that letter, and the price I ask for it is your public support of the Argentine scheme. You made your own fortune out of one canal. You must help me and my friend make our fortunes out of another.
It is infamous what you proposed. Infamous.
No, Sir Robert. This is the game of life as we all have to play it, sooner or later.
Cannot.
Suppose you refuse. No.
I cannot do what you ask me. I cannot.
You mean you cannot help doing it? Do you know that you are standing on the edge of a precipice and it is not for you to make terms? It is for you to accept them. But continue on. Refuse. See what happens.
What do you mean?
Sir Robert, check this out. Years ago, you did a certain thing. You know, in old days, nobody pretended to be a bit better than his neighbors. In fact, to be a bit better than one's neighbor was considered excessively vulgar and middle class. Nowadays, with our modern native for morality, everyone has to pose a paragon of purity, incorruptibility, and all the other 7 deadly virtues. And what is the result? You all go over like ninepins, one after the other. Not a year passes in England without someone disappearing. Scandals used to lend charm, or at least interest to a man, and now they crush him. And yours is a very nasty scandal. You couldn't survive it. If If it were known that, as a young man, secretary to a great and important minister, you sold a cabinet secret for a large sum of money and that was the origin of your wealth and career, you would disappear completely. You would be hounded out of public life. And after all, Sir Robert, why should you deal diplomatically with your enemy? You know, sacrifice your entire future? I am your enemy for the moment. I admit it. And I am much stronger than you are. The big battalions are on my side. Yes, you have a splendid position, but it is your position that makes you so weak. You can't defend it, and I am in attack. Of course, I haven't spoken morality to you yet. You must admit, in fairness, I've spared you that. Years ago, you did that clever, unscrupulous thing. It turned out a great success. You owe it to your fortunate position, and now you've got to pay. Sooner or later, we all have to pay for what we do. You have to pay now. Before I leave you tonight, I want you to suppress your report that you intend to lay before that house. And if you do that, we can make things simpler.
But you asked is impossible.
You must make it possible. You are going to make it possible. So Robert, you know what your English house parties are like? You know what your English newspapers say? Suppose that when I leave this house, I drive down to some newspaper office, present to them this scandal and the proofs of it. Think of their loathsome joy, of the delight they will have in dragging you down, of the mud and mire they will plunge you in. Think of the hypocrite with this greasy grin, penning his leading article and arranging the foulness of the public placard.
Wait. You want me to withdraw the report and make a short speech saying I think there's a possibility with the scheme?
Those are my terms.
I will pay you any sum of money that you want.
Even you are not rich enough to buy back your past. No man is.
I will not do what you ask me. I will not.
You have to. Because if you don't...
Wait. What did you propose? You said you would give me back my letter.
Yes, Sir Robert. That is agreed. I will be in the latest gallery tomorrow night at 11:30. If by that time you have made a speech in the House in the terms I wish, I shall hand you back your letter with the prettiest thanks and the best, or at any rate, the most suitable compliment I can think of. I intend to play quite fairly with you. One should always play fairly when one has the winning cards. The Baron taught me that, amongst other things.
You must give me a week to figure things out, or at least 3 days.
No, you have to settle now.
No, what brought you into my life?
Circumstances.
Don't go. I consent. The report will be withdrawn. I will arrange a question to be put to me on the subject.
Thank you, Sir Robert. I knew we should come to an amicable agreement. I understood your nature from the first. I analyzed you, though you did not adore me. And now you may get my carriage for me. I see the people coming up from supper, and Englishmen always get romantic after a meal. That bores me dreadfully.
My dear, I hope you have enjoyed yourself. Sir Robert is entertaining, is he not?
Most entertaining. I have enjoyed my talk with him immensely.
He has had a very interesting and brilliant career, and he has married a most admirable wife. Lady Chiltern is a woman of the very highest principles, I'm glad to say. I admit I myself am a little too old now to go about setting a good example, but I always admire people who do. And Lady Chiltern has a very ennobling effect on life, though her dinner parties are rather dull sometimes. But one can't have everything, can one? And now I must go, dear. Shall I call on you tomorrow?
Yes, thank you.
We might drive in the park tomorrow at 5. Everything's so fresh in the park now.
Except the people.
Perhaps the people are a little jaded, dear. Perhaps the people are a little jaded, dear, but nothing is as horrible as high intellectual pressure. It makes the noses of the young girls so particularly large, and there's nothing so difficult to marry as a large nose. Men don't like them. All right, well, I'll see you later. Goodbye, dear. Goodbye, Gertrude.
What a charming house you have, Lady Chiltern. I've spent a delightful evening. It has been so wonderful getting to know your husband.
Why did you wish to meet my husband, Mrs. Chauvelin?
I will tell you. I wanted to interest him in this Argentine canal scheme of which I dare say you've heard, and I found him susceptible. Susceptible to reason, I mean, a rare thing in a man. I converted him in 10 minutes. He's going to make a speech in the house tomorrow night. We should hear him. It will be a great occasion.
There must be some mistake. That scheme could never have my husband's support.
Oh, I assure you, it is all settled. I don't regret my tedious journey from Vienna now. It has been a great success, but of course for the next 24 hours the whole thing is a dead secret.
A secret? Between whom?
Between your husband and myself.
Your carriage is here, Mrs. Cheveley.
Thank you, Sir Robert. Good evening, Lady Shilton. Good night, Lord Goring. At my Claridge's, don't you think you might leave a card?
If you wish, Mrs. Cheveley.
Oh, don't be so solemn about it, or I'll be obliged to leave a card on you. In England, I suppose that would hardly be considered ungrilled. Abroad, we are much more civilized. Well, you see me now, Sir Robert. Now that we have both the same interests at heart, we shall be great friends, I hope.
What a horrid woman.
You should go to bed, Miss Mabel.
Lord Goring.
Well, my father told me to go to bed an hour ago. I don't see why I shouldn't give you the same advice. I always pass on good advice. It's the only thing to do with it. It's never been used to oneself.
Lord Goring, you are always ordering me out of the room. I think it most courageous of you, especially as I am not going to bed for hours. You can come and sit down if you like and talk about anything in the world except the Royal Academy, Mrs. Cheveley, and novels in Scottish dialect. They are not improving subjects. What is this? Someone has dropped a diamond brooch. Quite beautiful, isn't it? I wish it was mine, but Gertrude won't let me wear anything but pearls, and I'm thoroughly sick of pearls. They make one look so plain, so good, and so intellectual. I wonder who the brooch belongs to.
I wonder who dropped it.
It is a beautiful brooch.
It is a handsome bracelet.
It isn't a bracelet, it's a brooch.
So it can be used as a bracelet.
What are you doing?
Miss Mabel, I am going to make a rather strange request to you.
Oh, pray do. I have been waiting for it all the evening.
Don't mention to anybody that I've taken charge of this brooch. If anyone should write and claim it, let me know at once.
That is a strange request.
Well, you see, I gave this brooch to somebody years ago.
You did?
Yes.
And I shall certainly bid you good night. Good night, Gertrude. Good night, dear. You saw whom Lady Markby brought here tonight?
Yes, it was an unpleasant surprise. What did she come here for?
Apparently to try and lure Robert into upholding some scheme in which she is interested. The Argentine Canal, in fact.
She has mistaken her man, hasn't she?
She is thoroughly incapable of understanding an upright nature like my husband's.
Yes, I should fancy she came to grief if she tried to get Robert into her toils. It is extraordinary what astounding mistakes clever women make.
I don't call women of that kind clever. I call them stupid.
Same thing often. Good night, Lady Chiltern.
Good night.
Hey, Arthur, you're not going. Please stop a little.
Oh, afraid I can't, thanks. I have promised to look in at the Heart Box. I hear they've got a mauve Hungarian band that plays mauve Hungarian music. See you soon. Goodbye.
How beautiful you look tonight, Gertrude.
Robert, it is not true, is it? You were not going to lend your name to this Argentine speculation. You couldn't.
Who told you I intended to do so?
That woman who has just gone out, Mrs. Cheveley, as she calls herself now. She seemed to taunt me with it. Robert, I know this woman. You don't. We were at school together. She was untruthful, dishonest, an evil influence on anyone whose trust or friendship she could win. I despised her. She stole things. She was a thief. She was sent away for being a thief. Why did you let her influence you?
Gertrude, what you tell me may all be true, but it happened many years ago. It is best forgotten. Mr. Cheveley may have changed since then. Besides, no one should be judged entirely by their past.
One's past is what one is. It is the only way by which people should be judged.
That is a hard saying, Gertrude.
It is a true saying, Robert. And what did she mean by boasting that she had got you to lend your support, your name, to a thing I have heard you describe as the most dishonest and fraudulent scheme there has ever been in political life?
I was mistaken in the view I took. We all may make mistakes.
But you told me yesterday that you had received the report from the commission and that it entirely condemned the whole thing.
I have reason to believe that the House have been prejudiced, or at any rate misinformed. Public and private life are different things. They have different laws and move on different lines.
They should both represent man at his highest. I see no difference between them.
Gertrude, truth is a very complex thing. And politics is a very complex business. There are wheels within wheels. One may be under obligations to pay people that one must compromise to. Sooner or later in political life, one must compromise.
Compromise? Robert, why do you talk so differently tonight from the way I have always heard you talk? Why are you changed?
I'm not changed, but circumstances alter things.
Circumstances should never alter principles.
What if I told you
What?
that it was necessary, vitally necessary?
It can never be necessary to do what is not honorable. Or if it be necessary, then what is it that I have loved? But it is not, Robert. Tell me it is not. What gain would you get? Money? We have no need of that. And money that comes from a tainted source is a degradation. Power? But it is power in itself to do good that is fine. That and that only. What is it then? Robert, tell me why you are going to do this dishonorable thing.
Gertrude, you have no right to use that word. I told you, it is a case of rational compromise, that is all.
That is all very well for other men. For men who treat life simply as a sordid speculation. But not for you, Robert, not for you. All your life you have stood apart from the others. You have never let the world soil you. To the world as to myself, you have been an ideal always. Be that ideal still. That great inheritance throw not away. That tower of ivory do not destroy, Robert. Men can love what is beneath them. Things unworthy, stained, dishonored. We women worship when we love. And when we lose our worship, we lose everything. Oh, don't kill my love for you, Robert. Don't kill that.
Gertrude.
I know that there are men with horrible secrets in their lives. Men who have done some shameful thing and who in some critical moment have to pay for it by doing some other act of shame. Don't tell me you are such as they are. Robert, is there in your life any secret dishonor or disgrace? Tell me at once that
what?
That our lives may drift apart.
Drift apart?
That they may be entirely separate. It would be better for us both.
Gertrude, there is nothing in my past life that you do not know.
I was sure of it, Robert. I was sure of it. But then why would you say those dreadful things so unlike your real self? You will write, won't you, to Mrs. Cheveley and tell her that you cannot support the scheme of hers? If you have given her any promise, you must take it back, that is all.
Must I write and tell her that?
Surely, Robert. What else is there to do?
I could see her personally, it would be better.
No, you must never see her again, Robert. She is not a woman you should ever speak to. She is not worthy to talk to a man like you. Now, you must write to her at once, this moment, and let your letter show her that your decision is quite irrevocable.
Right this moment?
Yes.
But it's so late. It's close on 12.
That makes no matter. She must know that she has been mistaken in you, and that you are not a man to do anything base or underhand or dishonorable. Right here, Robert. Write that you decline to support the scheme of hers as you hold it to be a dishonest scheme. Yes, write the word dishonest. She knows what the word means. Yes, that will do. And now the envelope. Have this letter sent at once to Claridge's hotel. There is no answer. Robert, love gives one an instinct to things.
I feel tonight that I have saved you from something that might have been a danger to you, from something that might have made men honor you less than they do. I don't think you realize sufficiently, Robert, that you have brought into the political life of our time a nobler atmosphere, a finer attitude, a freer air of purer aims and higher ideals. I know this, Robert, and for that I love you.
Oh, love me always, Gertrude. Love me always.
I will love you always, because you will always be worthy of love. We need must love the highest when we see it.
Put out the lights, Mason. Put out the lights.
Well, my dear Robert, it's a very awkward business, very awkward indeed. You should have told your wife the whole thing. Secrets from other people's wives are a necessary luxury in modern life. So at least I am always told at the club, by people who are bald enough to know better, but no man should have a secret from his own wife. She invariably finds it out. Women have a wonderful instinct about things. They can discover everything except the obvious.
Arthur, I couldn't tell my wife. When could I have told her? Not last night. It would have made a lifelong separation between us, and I would have lost the love of the only woman whom I worshiped, of the only woman who has ever stirred love within me. Last night would have been quite impossible. She would have turned away from me in horror and in contempt.
Is Lady Chiltern as perfect as all that?
Yes, my wife is as perfect as all that.
What a pity. I beg your pardon, my dear fellow, I didn't quite mean that. But if what you tell me is true, I should like to have a serious talk about life with Lady Chiltern.
It'll be quite useless.
May I try?
Yes, but nothing can make her alter her views.
Well, at the worst, it would simply be a psychological experiment.
All such experiments are terribly dangerous.
Everything is dangerous, my dear fellow. If it wasn't so, life wouldn't be worth living. Well, I am bound to say I think you should have told her years ago.
When? When we were engaged? Do you think she would have married me knowing that the origin of my fortune is such as it is? That the basis of my career is such as it is? And that I had done something most men would call shameful and dishonorable?
Yes, most men would call it ugly names. There is no doubt of that.
Men who every day do something of the same kind themselves. Men who, each one of them, have worse secrets in their own lives.
That is the reason they are so pleased to find out other people's secrets. It distracts public attention from their own.
And after all, whom did I wrong from what I did? No one.
Except yourself, Robert.
Of course, I had private information of a certain transaction contemplated by the government of the day, and I acted on it. Private information is practically the source of every large modern fortune.
And public scandal, invariably the result.
Arthur, do you think that what I did nearly 18 years ago should be brought up against me now? Do you think that a man's career should be ruined for a folly done in one's boyhood almost? I was 22 at the time, and I had the double misfortune of being well-born and poor. Two unforgivable things nowadays. Is it fair that a folly, a sin, if men want to call it a sin, should shatter a career like mine? Should wreck all that I've worked up? All that I've built up? Is it fair, Arthur?
Well, life is never fair, Robert. And perhaps it is a good thing for most of us that it is not.
Every man of ambition has to fight his century with its weapons. But this century worships his wealth. The god of this century is wealth. At all costs, one must have wealth.
Believe me, Robert, you underrate yourself, all right? Without wealth, you could have succeeded just as well.
When I was old, perhaps. When I had lost my passion for power, I couldn't use it. When I was worn out, tired, disappointed. I wanted success when I was young. Youth is the time for success. and I couldn't wait.
But you still have had your success while you're still young. No one in our day has had such a brilliant success. Undersecretary for Foreign Affairs at the age of 40. It's good enough for anyone, I should think.
If everything is taken away from me, if I lose everything over a horrible scandal, if I'm hounded from public life.
Robert, how could you have sold yourself for money?
I did not sell myself for money. I bought success at a great price, that is all.
Yes, you certainly paid a great price for it. But what first made you think of doing such a thing?
Baron Arnheim.
Damn scoundrel.
No. He was a man of a most subtle and refined intellect. A man of culture, charm, and distinction. One of the most intellectual men I ever met.
I prefer a gentlemanly fool any day. There is more to be said for stupidity than people imagine. Personally, I have a great admiration for stupidity. It is sort of a fellow feeling, I suppose. But how did he do it? Tell me the whole thing.
One night after dinner at Lord Radley's, the Baron was talking about success in modern life as something that could be reduced to an absolute definite science. With that wonderfully fantastic quiet voice of his, he expounded to us the terror of all the philosophies, the philosophy of power. Preached to us the marvelous of all the gospels, the gospel of gold. I think he noticed the effect he had produced on me. For some days afterwards, he wrote and asked me to come and see him. I remember so well, with a strange smile on his pale, curved lips. He showed me his wonderful art galleries, showed me his tapestries, his enamels, his jewels, his carved ivories. Made me wonder at the strange loveliness of the luxury in which he lived. And then he told me that luxury was nothing but a background, a painted scene in a play, and that power over other men, power over the world was the one thing worth having, the one supreme pleasure worth knowing, and that in this century only the rich possessed it.
Thoroughly shallow creed.
I didn't think so then. I don't think so now. Wealth has given me an enormous fortune. It has given me, on the outset of my life, freedom. Freedom is everything. You have never been poor. You have never known what ambition is. You can't understand the chance the Baron gave me. The chance that so few men get.
Fortunately for them, if one is to judge by results. But tell me, how did the Baron finally persuade you to do what you did?
When I was going away, he told me that if I could give him any private information of real value, that he would make me a very rich man. I was dazed at the prospect he held out to me. And at that time, my passion for power and my ambition was boundless. 6 weeks later, certain documents passed through my hands.
State documents?
Yes.
Oh, I had no idea that you, of all men in this world, could have been so weak, Robert, as to yield to such a temptation as Baron Arnheim held out to you.
Weak? Oh, I'm sick of hearing that phrase. Weak? Do you think, Arthur, that it is weakness that makes us yield to temptation? I tell you, there are temptations that it takes strength and courage to yield to stake all one's life on a single moment, to risk everything on one throw. Whether that stake is power or pleasure, I care not. There is no weakness in that. There is a horrible, a terrible courage. I had that courage. I sat down that afternoon and wrote the Baron the letter this woman now holds. He made $750,000 over the transaction.
And you?
I received from the Baron 110,000 pounds.
You were worth more, Robert.
No, that money gave me exactly what I wanted. Power over others. I went into the house immediately. Before 5 years, I had almost trebled my fortune. Since then, everything I touched has turned out a success. And all things connected with money. I have had a luck so extraordinary that it has made me almost afraid. I remember reading somewhere, some strange book, that when the gods want to punish us, they answer our prayers.
But tell me, Robert, did you ever suffer any regret for what you had done?
No, thought I had fought the century with its weapons and won.
You thought you had won?
Thought so. Do you despise me for what I've told you, Arthur?
I am very sorry for you, Robert. Very sorry indeed.
I didn't say I suffered any remorse. I didn't. Not remorse in a rather silly sense of the word. I've paid conscious money many times. I had a wild hope that I might be able to disarm destiny. The sum Baron Arnheim distributed to me, I have distributed twice over in public charities since then.
In public charities? Dear me, what a lot of harm you must have done, Robert.
Don't say that, Arthur. Don't talk like that.
Never mind what I say. I'm always saying what I shouldn't say. In fact, I usually say what I really think. a great mistake nowadays. It makes one so liable to be misunderstood. As regards this dreadful business, I will help you in every way I can. Of course, you know that.
Thank you, Arthur. But what is to be done? What can be done?
Well, the English can't stand a man who is always saying he's in the right, but they are very fond of a man who can admit when he has been wrong. It is one of the best things in them. However, in your case, a confession would not do. The money, if you will allow me to say so, is awkward. And besides, if you did make a clean breast of the whole affair, you would never be able to talk morality again. And in England, a man who can't talk morality twice a week to a large, popular, immoral audience is quite over as a serious politician. There would be nothing left for him as a profession except botany or the church. A confession would be of no use. It would ruin you.
It would ruin me. Arthur, the only thing left to do now is to fight the thing out.
Ah! I was waiting for you to say that. That is the only thing for you to do now. And you must begin by telling your wife the whole story.
That I will not do.
Robert, believe me, you are wrong.
I couldn't do it. It would kill her love for me. And now, with this woman, with regards to Mrs. Cheveley, how could I defend myself against her? You seem to have known her before, Arthur, apparently?
Yeah.
Did you know her well?
So little that I got engaged to be married to her once when I was staying at the Tenbys. The affair lasted for 3 days, nearly.
Why was it broken off?
Oh, I forget. Well, at least it makes no matter. By the way, have you tried her with money? She used to be confoundedly fond of money.
I offered her any sum she wanted. She refused.
So the marvelous gospel of gold breaks down sometimes. The rich can't do everything after all.
Not everything. I suppose you're right. I fear public disgrace is in store for me, Arthur. I feel certain of it. I have never known what terror was before. I know what it is now. It is as if a hand of ice were laid upon one's heart. It is as if a heart were beating itself to death in some empty hollow.
Robert, you must fight. You're a fighter!
But how?
Oh, I can't tell you how at present. I have not the smallest idea. But everyone has some weak point. There is some flaw in each one of us. My father tells me that even I have faults. Perhaps I have. I don't know.
When defending myself against Mrs. Cheveley, I have the right to use any weapon I can find, have I not?
In your case, I don't think I should have the smallest scruple in doing so. She is thoroughly well able to take care of herself.
I shall send a cipher telegram to Vienna to inquire if there's anything known against her. There must be some secret affair she might be scared of.
Oh, I should fancy Mrs. Cheveley is one of those very modern women of our time who find a new scandal as becoming as a new bonnet and air them both in the park every afternoon at 5:30. Well, I am sure she adores scandals and that the sorrow of her life at present is that she can't manage to have enough of them.
It is worthwhile my writing to Vienna, is it not?
It is always worthwhile asking a question, though it is not always worthwhile answering one.
Is Mr. Trafford in his room?
Yes, Sir Robert.
Tell him to have this sent off the cipher at once. There must not be a moment's delay.
Yes, Sir Robert.
Wait. Give me that back. She must have had some curious hold over Baron Arnau. I wonder what it was.
Yeah, I wonder.
I will fight her to death as long as my wife knows nothing.
Oh, fight in any case. In any case.
If she were to find out, there will be little left to fight for. I will let you know the result of when I hear back from Vienna. There's a chance, just a chance, but I believe in it. And as I fought the age with its weapons, I will fight her with her weapons. It is only right. And besides, she looks like a woman with a past, right?
Most pretty women do. But perhaps there is a fashion in past, just as there is a fashion in frocks. Perhaps Mrs. Cheveley's past is merely a slight décolleté one, and they are excessively popular nowadays. But I should not build too high hopes on frightening Mrs. Cheveley. I should not fancy Mrs. Cheveley is a woman that is easily frightened. She has survived all her creditors, and she shows wonderful presence of mind.
Oh, I clutch at every hope, every chance. I feel like a man in a storm. The very water is around my feet, and the very air is bitter with storm. I shall hear my wife's voice.
Good afternoon.
afternoon, Lord Goring.
Good afternoon, Lady Chiltern. Have you been in the park?
No, I have just come from the Women's Liberal Association where, by the way, Robert, your name was received with loud applause, and now I've come in to have my tea. You will stop and have some tea, won't you?
I'll wait for a short time, thanks.
I will be back in a moment. I'm only going to take my hat off.
Oh, please don't. It is so pretty. One of the prettiest hats I ever saw. I hope the Women's Liberal Association received it with loud applause.
We have much more important work to do than look at each other's bonnets, Lord Goring.
Really? What sort of work?
Oh, dull, useful, delightful things. Factory acts, the female inspectors, the 8 hours bill, the parliamentary franchise. Everything, in fact, that you would find thoroughly uninteresting.
And never bonnets?
Never bonnets. Never.
I have to thank you for what you have done for me.
Oh, I don't think I've been able to do much for you, Robert. In fact, I have not been able to do anything for you as far as I can see. I am thoroughly disappointed in myself.
You have enabled me to tell you the truth. That is something. The truth has always stifled me.
The truth is a thing I get rid of as soon as possible. Bad habit, by the way. It makes one very unpopular at the club. With the older members, they call it being conceited.
And what to God I have been able to tell the truth. That is something. To live the truth is a great thing in the world. I shall see you again soon, Arthur, shan't I?
Certainly, whenever you like. I'm going to look in at the bachelor's ball tonight, unless I find something better to do. But I'll come around tomorrow morning. If you want me by any chance tonight, just send round a note to Curzon Street.
Thank you.
You are not going, Robert.
I have some letters to write, dear.
You work too hard, dear. You are looking so tired, and you seem never to think of yourself.
There's nothing, dear. There's nothing.
Do sit down. I am so glad you called. I want to talk to you about, well, not about bonnets or the Women's Liberal Association. You take far too much interest in the first subject and not nearly enough in the second.
You want to talk to me about Mrs. Shevley?
Yes, you have guessed it. After you left last night, I found out that what she said was really true. Of course, I made Robert write her a letter at once withdrawing his promise.
So he gave me to understand.
To have kept it would have been the first stain on a career that has been stainless always. Robert must be above reproach. He is not like other men. He cannot afford to do what other men do. Don't you agree with me? You are Robert's greatest friend. You are our greatest friend, Lord Goring. He has no secrets from me, and I don't think he has any from you.
Oh, he certainly has no secrets from me. At least I don't think so.
Then am I not right in my estimation of him? I know I am right, but speak to me frankly.
Quite frankly,
Surely you have nothing to hide, have you?
well, nothing, but my dear Lady Chiltern, I think, if you will allow me to say so, that in practical life,
Of which you know so little, Lord Goring.
of which I know nothing by experience, though I know something by observation, I think that in practical life, there is something about success, actual success, that is a little unscrupulous. Something about ambition that is unscrupulous always. Once a man has set his heart and soul on getting to a certain point, if he has to climb the crag, he climbs the crag. If he has to walk in the mire,
Well,
he walks in the mire. Of course, I'm only talking generally about life.
I hope so. Why do you look at me so strangely, Lord Goring?
Lady Chiltern, I have sometimes thought that perhaps you are a little hard in some of your views on life. I think that often you don't make sufficient allowances. Well, in every nature, there are elements of weakness, or worse than weakness. Supposing, for instance, that any public man, my father or Lord Merton or Robert, had, say, years ago, written some foolish letter to someone.
What do you mean by a foolish letter?
A letter gravely compromising one's position. I am only putting an imaginary case.
I hope so. Robert is as incapable of doing a foolish thing as he is of doing a wrong thing.
Nobody is incapable of doing a foolish thing. Nobody is incapable of doing a wrong thing.
Are you a pessimist? What will all the other dandies say? They will all have to go into mourning.
No, Lady Chiltern, I am not a pessimist. Indeed, I am not quite sure that I know what pessimism really means. But what I do know is that life cannot be understood without much charity, cannot be lived without much charity. It is love, and not German philosophy, that is the true explanation of this world, whatever may be the explanation of the next. And if you should ever want my help in any way, come to me for my assistance, and you shall have it. If you should ever want me, come to me, and I will help you in every way I can. Come at once to me.
You are talking quite seriously, Lord Goring. I don't think I've ever heard you talk seriously before.
You must excuse me, Lady Chiltern. It won't occur again if I can help it.
But I like you to be serious.
Dear Gertrude, don't say such a dreadful thing to Lord Goring. Seriousness would be very unbecoming to him. Good afternoon, Lord Goring. Pray, be as trivial as you can.
I should like to, Miss Mabel, but I am afraid I am a little out of practice this morning. Besides, I have to be going now, so.
Mr. Knight, come in. What dreadful manners you have. I'm sure you were very badly brought up.
I was.
I wish I had thought.
I am so sorry you didn't.
It is too late now, I suppose.
I am not so sure.
Will you ride tomorrow?
Yes, at 10.
Don't forget.
Of course I shan't. By the way, Lady Chiltern, there is no list of your guests in the Morning Post of today. Apparently, it has been crowded out by the County Council or the Lambeth Conference or something equally boring. Could you let me have a list? I have a particular reason for asking you.
I'm sure Mr. Trafford will be able to give you one.
Thank you so much.
Tommy Trafford is the most useful person in London.
And who is the most ornamental?
I am.
How clever of you to guess it. 10 tomorrow. Well, goodbye, Lady Chiltern. You will remember what I said to you, won't you?
Yes, but I don't know why you said it to me.
I hardly know myself. Goodbye, Miss Mabel.
I wish you were not going. I've had 4 wonderful adventures this morning, 4.5 in fact. You might stop and listen to some of them.
How very selfish of you to have 4.5. There won't be any left for me.
I don't want you to have any. They would not be good for you.
What, that is the first unkind thing you have ever said to me. How charmingly you said it. 10 tomorrow.
Sharp.
Quite sharp, but don't bring Mr. Trafford.
Of course I shan't bring Tommy Trafford. Tommy Trafford is in great disgrace.
Oh, I am delighted to hear it.
Gertrude, I wish you would speak to Tommy Trafford.
Why, what has poor Mr. Trafford done this time? Robert says he is the best secretary he has ever had.
Well, Tommy has proposed to me. Again. Tommy really does nothing but propose to me. He proposed to me last night in the music room where I was quite unprotected as there was an elaborate trio going on. I didn't dare to make the smallest repartee, I need hardly tell you. If I had, it would have stopped the music at once. Musical people are so absurdly unreasonable. They always want one to be perfectly dumb at the very moment when one is longing to be absolutely deaf. Then he proposed to me in broad daylight this morning in front of that dreadful statue of Achilles. Really, the things that go on in front of that work of art are quite appalling. The police should interfere. At lunch, I could tell by the glare in his eye that he was going to propose to me again, and I just managed to check him in time by assuring him I was a bimetallist. Fortunately, I don't know what bimetallism means, and I don't think anybody else does either. The observation crushed Tommy. He looked quite shocked. And then, Tommy is so annoying in the way that he proposes. If he proposed at the top of his voice, I should not mind so much. That might produce some effect on the public. But he does it in a horrid, confidential way. When Tommy wants to be romantic, he talks to one just like a doctor. I am very fond of Tommy Trafford, but his methods of proposing are quite out of date. I wish, Gertrude, you would speak to him and tell him that once a week is quite often enough to propose to anyone, and that should always be done in a manner that attracts some attention.
Dear Mabel, don't talk like that. Robert thinks very highly of Mr. Trafford. He believes he has a brilliant future ahead of him.
I wouldn't marry a man with a future ahead of him for anything under the sun.
Mabel.
I know, dear. You married a man with a future, didn't you? But then, Robert was a genius. And you have a noble, self-sacrificing character. You can stand geniuses. I have no character at all, and Robert is the only genius I could ever bear. As a rule, I think they're quite impossible. Geniuses always talk so much, don't they? Such a bad habit. And they're always thinking about themselves, when I want them to be thinking about me. I must go round now and rehearse at Lady Bassington's. You remember, we are having a tableau, don't you? The triumph of something. I don't know what. I hope it will be triumph of me. Only triumph I'm really interested in at present. Gertrude, do you know who's coming to see you? That dreadful Mrs. Chevalier in most lovely gown. Did you ask her?
Mrs. Chevalier coming to see me? Impossible.
I assure you, she is coming upstairs as large as life and not nearly as natural.
You need not wait, Mabel. Besides, Lady Basildon is expecting you.
Oh, I must shake hands with Lady Markby. She is delightful. I love being scolded by her.
Lady Markby, Mrs. Chevalier.
Dear Lady Markby, how nice of you to come and see me. Won't you sit down, Mrs. Chevalier?
Thanks. Isn't that Miss Chiltern? I should like so much to know her.
Mabel, Mrs. Chevalier would like to know you.
I thought your frock so charming last night. So simple and suitable.
Really? I will have to tell my dressmaker. It will be such a surprise to her. Goodbye, Lady Markby. Going already? I'm so sorry, but I'm obliged to. I'm just off to rehearsal. I've got to stand on my head in some tableau.
On your head, child, I hope not. I believe it is most unhealthy.
But it is for an excellent charity. In aid of the undeserving. The only people I'm really interested in. I'm secretary, and Tommy Trafford is treasurer.
And what is Lord Goring?
Lord Goring is president.
The post should suit him admirably, unless he's deteriorated since I knew him first.
You are quite modern, Mabel. A little too modern, perhaps. Nothing is so dangerous as being too modern. One's apt to grow old-fashioned quite suddenly. I've known many instances of it.
What a dreadful prospect.
Ah, my dear, you need not be nervous. You are as pretty as possible. And that is the best fashion there is, and the only fashion that England succeeds in setting.
Thank you, Lady Markby. For England and for myself.
Gertrude, dear, we only called in to see if Mrs. Chevalier's diamond brooch has been found.
Here?
Yes, I missed it when I got back to Claridge's and thought I might possibly have dropped it here.
I have heard nothing about it, but I will send for the butler and ask.
Pray, don't trouble Lady Chiltern. I dare say I lost it at the opera before we came on here.
Ah, yes, it must have been at the opera. The fact is, we all scramble and jostle so much nowadays. I wonder if we have anything left on us at the end of the evening. I know myself that when I'm coming in from the drawing room, I feel as if I only have a shred on me, a small shred of decent reputation, just enough to keep the lower classes from making painful observations through the windows of the carriage. The fact is, our society is terribly overpopulated nowadays. Really, someone should arrange a proper scheme of assisted emigration. It would do a great deal of good.
I quite agree with you, Lady Markby. It is nearly 6 years since I've been in London for the season, and I must say, society here has become dreadfully mixed. One sees the oddest people everywhere.
It's quite true, dear, but one needn't know them. Indeed, from all I hear, I don't know half the people who come to my house, but one needn't know them.
What sort of brooch was it that you lost, Mrs. Chevalier?
A diamond snake brooch with a ruby, a rather large ruby.
I thought you said there was a sapphire in the headgear.
No, Lady Markby, a ruby.
Oh, and very becoming, I'm quite sure.
Has a ruby and diamond brooch been found in any of the rooms this morning, Mason?
No.
It really is of no consequence, Lady Chiltern. I am so sorry to have put you to any inconvenience.
Oh, it has been no inconvenience. That will do, Mason. You can bring tea.
I must say, it's most annoying to lose anything. I remember myself, years ago in Bath, losing an exceedingly handsome cameo bracelet that Sir John has given me. He is sadly degenerated and hasn't given me anything since, I'm sorry to say. Really, this horrid House of Commons quite ruins our husbands for us. I think it's the greatest blow to happy married life there's been since that terrible thing called the higher education of women was invented.
It is heresy to say that in this house, Lady Markby. Robert is a great champion of the higher education of women, and so, I am afraid, am I.
The higher education of men is what I should like to see. Men need it so sadly.
They do, dear, but I don't think man has much capacity for development. He has got as far as he can. That's not far, is it? And in regard to women, dear Gertrude, you are of the younger generation, and I suppose it's all right if you approve it. In my day, we were taught not to understand anything. That was the old system, and wonderfully interesting it was. I assure you the amount of things I and my dear sister were taught not to understand is quite extraordinary. But modern women understand everything, I hear.
Except their husbands. That is the one thing the modern woman never understands.
And a good thing too, dear, I dare say. Might ruin many a happy home if they did. Not yours, I need hardly say, Gertrude. You have married a pattern husband. I wish I could say as much for myself. But Sir John, since he has taken to attending the debates regularly, which he never used to do in the good old days, his language has become quite impossible, and consequently, he always seems to think he's addressing the House, and when he discusses the agricultural laborer or the Welsh church or something quite improper of the kind, I'm obliged to send all the servants out of the room. It is not pleasant to see one's own butler, who has been with one for 23 years, actually blushing at the sideboards, and the footmen making contortions and corners like purses in circuses. I assure you my life will be quite ruined unless they send Sir John at once to the upper house. We won't take any interest in politics then. House of Lords is so sensible, an assembly of gentlemen, but in his present state Sir John is a great trial. Why, this morning before breakfast was half over, he stood up in the hearthrug, put his hands in his pockets, and appealed to the country at the top of his voice. I need hardly say I left the table after I finished my second cup of tea. Oh, but his violent language could be heard throughout the whole house. I trust Sir Robert is not like that, dear Gertrude.
But I am very much interested in politics, Lady Markby. I love to hear Robert talk about them.
Well, I hope he's not as interested in blue books as Sir John is. They can be quite becoming reading material for anyone.
I've never read a blue book. I prefer books in yellow covers.
Well, yellow is a gayer color, dear. I used to wear yellow a great deal in my younger days. I would do so now if Sir John was not so painfully personal as observations on dress. Men on the question of dress are always ridiculous, are they not?
No, I think they are the only authorities on dress.
Really, one wouldn't say so from the sorts of hats they wear.
May I give you some tea, Mrs. Shepley?
Thank you.
Some tea, Lady Markby?
No, thank you. The fact is, I have promised to go around for 10 minutes to Lady Brancaster. The fact is, she's in very great trouble. Her daughter, quite a well-brought-up girl, is actually become engaged to be married to a curate in Shropshire. And then the eldest son of the family is quarreling with his father. Seems nowadays sons don't want anything to do with their fathers, and fathers won't speak to their sons. I think myself it's very much to be regretted.
So do I. Fathers have so much to learn from their sons nowadays.
Really, dear, what?
The art of living, the really only fine art we have produced in modern times.
Well, Lord Brancaster knew a great deal about that, more than his poor wife ever did. You know Lady Brancaster, don't you, dear?
Just slightly. She was staying at Langton last autumn when we were there.
Well, like all stout women, she looks the very picture of happiness, as no doubt you noticed. But there are many tragedies in her life besides this affair of the curate. Her own sister, Mrs. Jekyll, led a very unhappy life, though through no fault of her own, I'm sorry to say. She became so broken-hearted, ultimately, that she went into the convent or the operatic stage, I forget which. No, it was decorative art needlework she went into. And now, my dear Gertrude, shall I leave Mrs. Shepley in your charge and call for her in a quarter of an hour? Or, Mrs. Shepley, you might come with me and wait in the carriage. Since I intended to be a visit of condolence, I shan't stay long.
I don't mind waiting in the carriage at all, provided there is somebody to look at one.
Well, I hear the curate is always prowling about the house.
I am afraid I am not fond of girlfriends.
Oh, I should hope that Lady Mrs. Shepley will stay here a moment. I should like to have a few minutes' conversation with her.
How very kind of you, Lady Chiltern. Believe me, nothing would give me greater pleasure.
I'm sure you have many reminiscences of your school days to go over together. Well, I'll be on my way now. Are you dining at Lady Bonar's tonight?
Oh, Robert and I will be dining at home by ourselves tonight, and I don't think we shall go anywhere afterwards. Robert, of course, will have to be in the house, but there is nothing interesting on.
Dining at home by yourselves, is that quite prudent? Oh, I forget. You married the exception while I married the rule. Nothing ages a woman so rapidly as having married the general rule.
Wonderful woman, Lady Markby, isn't she? Talks more and says less than anybody I ever met. She is made to be a public speaker, much more so than her husband, though he is a typical Englishman, always dull and usually violent.
Mrs. Shepley, I think it is quite right to tell you that had I known who you really were, I should not have invited you to my house last night.
Really?
I could not have done so.
I see that after all these years, you have not changed a bit, Gertrude.
I never change.
Then life has taught you nothing.
Oh, it has taught me that a person who has once been guilty of a dishonest and dishonorable action may be guilty of it a second time and should be shunned.
Would you apply that rule to everyone?
Yes, to everyone without exception.
And I am sorry for you, Gertrude. So very sorry for you.
You see, now I am certain that for many reasons, any further acquaintance between us during your stay in London will be quite impossible.
Do you know, Gertrude, I don't mind your talking morality a bit. Morality is simply the attitude we adopt towards people whom we personally dislike. You dislike me. I am well aware of that. And I've always detested you, and yet I've come here to do you a service.
Like the service you wished to render my husband last night, I suppose? Thank heaven I saved him from that.
It was you who made him break his promise to me? It was you who made him change his mind?
Yes.
Then you must make him keep it. I give you till tomorrow morning, no more. If by that time your husband doesn't solemnly bind himself to help me in a scheme in which I'm interested,
This fraudulent speculation.
call it what you choose. I hold your husband in the hollow of my hand, and if you are wise, you will make him do what I tell him.
You are impertinent. What has my husband to do with a person like you, with a woman like you?
In this world, like meets like. It is because your husband is himself fraudulent and dishonest that we pair so well together. Between you and him, there are chasms. He and I are closer than friends. We are enemies linked together. The same sin binds us.
How dare you class my husband with yourself? How dare you threaten him or me? Leave my house. You are unfit to enter it.
Your house? A house what with the price of dishonor? A house in which everything has been paid for by fraud? Ask him what the origin of his fortune is. Get him to tell you how he sold to a stockbroker a cabinet secret. Learn from him to which you owe your position.
It is not true, Robert. It is not true.
Look at him. Can he deny it? Does he dare to?
Go. Go at once. You have done your worst now.
My worst? I am not yet finished with you, with either of you. I give you both till tomorrow at noon, no more. If by that time Robert Shilton doesn't do what I bid him to do, the whole world would know the origin of Robert Shilton.
Show Mr. Shepley out.
You sold a cabinet secret for money? You built up your career on dishonor. You began your life with fraud. Oh, tell me it is not true. Lie to me. Lie to me. Tell me it is not true.
Gertrude, what this woman says is true. But listen to me. You do not know how I was tempted. Let me tell you the whole thing.
Don't touch me. Don't come near me. I feel as though you had soiled me forever. What a mask you have been wearing. A horrible, painted mask. You sold yourself to the highest bidder. Oh, a common thief were better. You were bought in the market. You lie to the whole world, and yet you will not lie to me.
Gertrude, Gertrude.
Don't speak. Say nothing. Your voice makes terrible memories. Memories of things that made me love you. Memories of words that made me love you. Memories that are now horrible to me. And how I worshipped you. You were to me something apart from common life. A thing pure, noble, honest, without stain. And now, to think that I made of a man like you my ideal. The ideal of my life.
There was your mistake. There was your error. The error all women commit. Why can't you women love us, faults and all? Why do you put us on monstrous pedestals? We have all feet of clay, women as well as men. But when we men love women, we love them knowing their weaknesses, their follies, their imperfections. Love them all the more, it may be for that reason. It is not the perfect, but the imperfect who have need of love. It is when we are wounded by our own hands or by the hands of others that love should cure us. All sins, except the sin against itself, Love should forgive. All lives save loveless lives. True love should pardon. A man's love is like that. It is wider, larger, more human than a woman's. Women think they are making ideals of us men, but what they are making of us are false idols merely. You made your false idol of me, and I had not the courage to come down, show you my wounds, tell you my weaknesses. I was afraid I would lose your love, as I have lost now. So last night, you ruined my life for me. Yes, ruined it. What that woman asked of me was nothing compared to what she offered me. She offered me security, peace, stability. The sin of my youth that I felt was buried rose up against me, hideous, horrible, with its hands at my throat. I could have killed this record, destroyed the one witness against me. And you prevented me. No one but you, and you know it. And now what is there before me? A public disgrace, ruin, terrible shame, the mockery of the world, a lonely, dishonored life, a lonely, dishonored death it may be someday. Let woman make no more ideals of men. Let him not put them on altars and bow before them, for it may ruin other lives. For you have I so wildly loved, have ruined mine.
Got my second buttonhole for me, Phipps?
Yes, my lord.
A rather distinguished thing, Phipps. I am the only person of the smallest importance in London at present who wears a buttonhole.
Yes, my lord, I have observed that.
You see, Phipps, fashion is what one wears oneself. What is unfashionable is what other people wear.
Yes, my lord.
Just as vulgarity is simply the conduct of other people.
Yes, my lord.
And falsehoods, the truths of other people.
Yes, my lord.
Other people are quite dreadful. The only possible society is oneself.
Yes, my lord.
To love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance, Phipps.
Yes, my lord.
Don't think I quite like this buttonhole, Phipps. Makes me look a little too old, doesn't it? Makes me almost in the prime of life, huh, Phipps?
I do not observe any alteration in your lordship's appearance.
You don't, Phipps.
No, my lord.
I am not so sure. For the future, a more trivial buttonhole on Thursday evenings.
I will speak to the florist, my lord. She has had a loss in her family lately, which might account for the lack of triviality your lordship complains of in the buttonhole.
Extraordinary thing about the lower class in England, they are always losing their relations.
They are extremely fortunate in that respect.
Huh. Any letters, Phipps?
3, my lord.
On my cab round in 20 minutes.
Yes, my lord.
Phipps.
Yes, my lord.
When did this letter arrive?
It arrived by hand this afternoon, shortly after your lordship went to the club.
That will do. Lady Chiltern's handwriting on Lady Chiltern's pink notepaper. That is rather curious. Robert was to write. Wonder what Lady Chiltern has got to say to me. I want you, I trust you, I am coming to you. Gertrude. I want you, I trust you, I am coming. Ah, so she has found out everything. Poor woman. But what an hour to call, 10 o'clock. I shall have to give up going to the Berkshires. However, it is always nice to be expected and not to arrive. Well, I am not expected at the Bachelor's, so I shall certainly go there. Well, I will make her stand by her husband. That is the only thing for her to do. It's the only thing for any woman to do. It is the growth of the moral sense in women that makes marriage such a hopeless, one-sided institution. But 10 o'clock, you should be here soon. I must tell Phipps I am not in to anyone else.
Lord Caversham, my lord.
Oh, why will parents always appear at the wrong time? Some extraordinary mistake in nature, I suppose. Delighted to see you, my dear father.
Take off my cloak, sir.
Is it worthwhile, Father?
Of course it's worthwhile. Which of these is the more comfortable?
This one, Father. It's the chair I use myself when I have visitors.
Glad to hear it. No draft in this room, I hope.
No, Father.
Good to hear. I hate drafts. No drafts at home.
Good many breezes, Father.
Huh? I don't understand what you mean, sir. I want to have a serious conversation with you, sir.
My dear Father, at this hour...
It's only 10 o'clock, sir. What is your concern with the hour? I think where is an admirable hour?
Well, the fact is, Father, it is not my day for talking seriously. I am very sorry, but it is not my day.
What do you mean, sir?
Well, during the season, Father, I only talk seriously on the first Tuesday of every month from 4 to 7.
Make it 7, sir. Make it 7.
But it is after 7, Father, and my doctor says I must not have any serious conversation after 7. Makes me talk in my sleep.
Oh, what does that matter? You're not married.
No, Father, I'm not married.
Oh, that's what I wanted to discuss with you. You've got to get married, sir, and at once. When I was your age, I was an inconsolable widower. For 3 months, I was already sending my addresses to your admirable mother. No, sir, you've got to get married. It's your duty. Every man of property is married these days. Bachelors, they're not fashionable anymore. They're a tired lot. Too much is known about that. You must get married. Look at your friend Shilton, what he's been able to accomplish by probity, hard work, and good marriage to a sensible woman. Why don't you make him your model, sir? Why don't you imitate him?
I think I shall, Father.
Then I should be happy. At present, I make your mother very unhappy on your account. You're heartless. You're very heartless.
I hope not, Father.
And it's high time for you to get married. You're 34 years old.
Well, yes, Father, but I only admit to 23, 22 and a half when I have a really good buttonhole. These buttonholes are just not trivial enough, you know?
I tell you, sir, you're 34 years old. Besides which, there is a draft in this room, which makes your conduct worse. Why do you tell me that there's no draft in this room? When I feel a draft, I distinctly feel a draft.
So do I, Father. It is a dreadful draft. Oh, my God. You know what? I'll come and see you tomorrow, Father. We can talk over anything you like. Here, let me help you on with your cloak, Father.
No, I come here for a specific purpose. I will see it through at any cost to my health or yours. Put down my cloak, sir.
Certainly, Father. But let us go into another room. There is a dreadful draft here. Phipps, is there a good fire in the smoking room?
Yes, my lord.
Let's go in there, Father. Your sneezes are quite heartrending.
Oh, I suppose I have a perfect right to sneeze when I want to.
Quite so. I was merely expressing sympathy.
Oh, damn sympathy. There's a good deal too much of that going around now, too.
I quite agree with you, Father. If there was less sympathy in the world, there would be less trouble in the world.
That's a paradox. I hate paradoxes.
So do I, Father. Everybody one meets is a paradox nowadays. It is a great bore. It makes society so obvious.
Do you always really understand what you say, sir?
Yes, Father, if I listen attentively.
If you listen attentively, you conceited young pup.
Phipps, there is a lady coming to see me this evening on particular business. When she arrives, show her into that room. You understand?
Yes, my lord.
It is a matter of the gravest importance, Phipps.
I understand, my lord.
No one else is to be admitted under any circumstances.
I understand, my lord.
Oh, that's probably her. I shall see her myself. Remember my instructions, Phipps. Into that room.
Is Lord Goring not here? I was told he was at home.
His lordship is at present engaged with Lord Caversham, madam.
How very filial.
His lordship told me, madam, to be kind enough to ask you to wait in the drawing room for him. His lordship will come to you there.
Lord Goring expects me.
Yes, madam.
Are you quite sure?
His lordship told me that if a lady were to arrive, then I should show her to the drawing room. His lordship's instructions were very precise.
To expect the unexpected shows a thoroughly modern intellect. Ugh. No. How dreary a bachelor's drawing room always looks. I shall have to alter all this. I don't care for that lamp. The shade is far too glaring. Light some candles.
Certainly, madam.
I hope the candles will have very becoming shades.
We have had no complaints about them as of yet, madam.
I wonder what woman he is waiting for tonight. It will be delightful to catch them. Men always look so silly when they are caught, and they are always being caught. What a very interesting room. What a very interesting picture. Wonder what his correspondence is like. Ugh, what a very uninteresting correspondence. Bills and cards, debts and dowagers. Who on earth writes them on pink paper? How silly it is to write on pink paper. It looks like the beginning of a middle-class romance. Romance should never begin with sentiment. It should always begin with science and end with the settlement. I know that handwriting. That is Gertrude Chiltern's. I remember it perfectly. The 10 Commandments in every stroke of the pen and a moral law all over the page. How I detest that woman. I wonder what she's writing to him about. Something horrid about me, I suppose. I trust you. I want you. I'm coming to you. Gertrude? I trust you. I want you. I'm coming to you.
The candles in the drawing room are lit, madam, just as you asked.
Thank you.
I trust the shades will be to your liking. They are the most becoming we have. They are the very same as his lordship himself uses when he is dressing for dinner.
Then I'm sure they will be perfectly right.
Thank you, madam.
My dear father, if I am to get married, surely you will allow me to choose the time, place, and person, particularly the person.
No, that's a matter for me, sir. You would probably make a very poor choice as property at stake. It's I who should be consulted, not you. It's not a matter of affection. Affection comes later on in married life.
Yes, Father, affection comes when people thoroughly dislike each other, doesn't it, Father?
Certainly. I mean, certainly not, sir. You're talking very foolishly tonight. No, it's my feeling that marriage is a matter of common sense.
But women who have common sense are so curiously plain, Father, aren't they? Of course, I only speak from hearsay.
No woman, plain or pretty, has any common sense. That's the privilege of our sex.
Yes, Father, and we men are so self-sacrificing that we never use it, do we, Father?
I use it. I use nothing else.
So my mother tells me.
Well, it's a secret of your mother's happiness. Oh, you're heartless, very heartless.
I hope not, Father.
My dear Arthur, what a piece of good luck meeting you at your doorstep. Your servant told me you were not at home. How extraordinary.
Well, the fact is I am horribly busy tonight, Robert, and I gave orders I was not at home to anyone. Even my father had a comparatively cold reception. He complained of a draft the whole time.
But you must be at home to me, Arthur. My wife has discovered everything.
Ah, I guessed as much.
Really? How?
Oh, merely by something in the expression of your face as you came in. Who told her?
Mrs. Shepley herself. Now, the woman I love knows that I began my career with an act of low dishonesty. That I built up my life upon sands of shame. That I sold, like a common huckster, the secret that was entrusted to me as a man of honor. I thank heaven poor Lord Radley died before knowing I betrayed him. But would to God I had died of not fallen so low.
Well, you have heard nothing from Vienna yet in answer to your wire.
I got a telegram from the first secretary at 8 o'clock.
Well?
Nothing is absolutely known against her. On the contrary, it is sort of an open secret that Baron Arnheim left her a great immense fortune. Beyond that, I cannot learn anything.
She doesn't turn out to be a spy, then.
Ah, spies are of no use nowadays. Their profession is over. The newspapers do their work instead.
And thunderingly well they do it.
Arthur, I'm parched for thirst. May I ring for something? Some hot and seltzer?
Oh, certainly, let me. Bring some Hock and Seltzer.
Oh, yes, my lord.
And Phipps,
Yes, my lord.
will you excuse me for a moment, Robert? I'd like to give some directions to my servant.
Certainly.
When that lady calls, tell her that I am not expected at home this evening. Tell her that I have suddenly been called out of town.
The lady is in that room, my lord. You told me to show her to that room.
You did perfectly right. Oh, what a mess I am in. No, I think I shall get through it. I'll give her a lecture through the door. Awkward thing to manage, though.
Arthur, tell me what I should do. You are my only friend. What a great friend you are. The one friend I can trust. I can trust you absolutely, can I not?
Dear Robert, of course. Listen. You love your wife, don't you?
I love my wife more than anything in the world. I used to think ambition a great thing. It is not. Love is the great thing in the world. There is nothing but love, and I love her. But I'm defamed in her eyes. I'm ignoble in her eyes. There's a wide gulf between us now. She has found me out, Arthur. She has found me out.
Has she never done some folly in her life, some indiscretion that she should not forgive your sin?
My wife? Never. She does not know what weakness or temptation is. I am of clay like other men. She stands true apart, as good women do. Cold and pitiless in her perfection. Cold and stern. But I love her, Arthur. I love her.
Robert, your wife loves you. Why should she not forgive? Perhaps at this moment she is forgiving you. Why should she not forgive you?
God granted, Arthur, God granted. But there is something more I have to tell you.
Hock and Seltzer, sir?
Thank you.
Robert, is your carriage here?
No, I walk from the club.
Sir Robert will take my cab, Phipps.
Yes, my lord.
Robert, you don't mind my sending you away?
Arthur, you must let me stay for 5 minutes. The debate on the Argentine canals to begin at 11. What is that?
Nothing.
There is something. I heard a chair fall in the next room.
What? No, there's no one there.
There is someone. There are lights in the room and the door is ajar. Someone has been listening to every secret of my life. What does this mean, Arthur?
Well, Robert, you are excited, all right? You're unnerved. I tell you, there's no one in that room, all right? Sit down, Robert.
Do you give me your word there's no one there?
Yes.
Your word of honor?
Yes.
Arthur, you must let me see for myself.
No.
You tell me there is no one there, so why should I not look into that room? Arthur, you must let me satisfy myself. Let me know that no eavesdropper has heard my life's secret. You don't know how I feel, Arthur.
Robert, this must stop. I have told you there is no one in that room. That is enough.
It is not enough. I insist on going into this room.
What? Okay. Don't, all right? There's someone in there. Someone whom you must not see.
Ah, I thought so.
I forbid you to enter that room.
Let me pass, sir. You have lied enough. I will know to who it is that I have told my life's secret and my shame.
Oh, great heavens. His own wife.
What explanation have you to give me for the presence of that woman here?
Robert, I swear to you on my honor that lady is stainless and guiltless of all offense towards you.
She is a vile and infamous thing.
Don't say that, Robert. It was for your sake she came here. It was to try and save you she came here. She loves you and no one else.
You are mad. What have I to do with that woman that intrigues with you? Let her remain your mistress. You are well suited to each other. She corruptful and shameful. You false as a friend.
It is not true, Robert. Before heaven, it is not true. In her presence and in yours, I will explain all.
Let me pass, sir. You have lied enough upon your word of honor.
Good evening, Lord Goring.
What? Mrs. Chev? Oh, my great heavens. Might I ask what you were doing in my drawing room?
Merely listening. I have a perfect passion for listening through keyholes. One always hears such wonderful things through them.
Doesn't that sound rather like tempting Providence?
Surely Providence can resist temptation by this time.
I am glad you have called. I'm going to give you some good advice.
Pray don't. One should never give a woman anything that she can't wear in the evening.
I see you were quite as willful as you used to be.
Oh, far more. I've improved greatly. I've had more experience.
Too much experience is a dangerous thing. Pray, have a cigarette. Half the pretty women in London smoke cigarettes. Personally, I prefer the other half.
Thanks. I never smoke. My dressmaker wouldn't like it, and a woman's first duty in life is to a dressmaker, isn't it? But the second duty is no one has as yet discovered.
Have you come here to sell me Robert Chiltern's letter, haven't you?
To offer it to you on conditions. How did you guess?
Because you haven't mentioned the subject. Have you got it with you?
Well, a well-made dress never has pockets.
What is your price for it?
How absurdly English you are. The English think that a checkbook can solve every problem in life. Why, dear author, I have very much more money than you have, and quite as much as Robert Chiltern has got hold of. Money is not what I want.
What do you want then, Mrs. Shevely?
Well, why don't you call me Laura?
I don't like the name.
You used to adore it.
Yeah, that's why.
Author, you loved me once,
Yes.
and you asked me to be your wife,
That was the natural result of my loving you.
and you threw me over because you saw, or said you saw, poor old Lord Mortlake trying to have a violent flirtation with me in a conservatory at Tinby.
I am under the impression that my lawyer settled that matter with you on certain terms dictated by yourself.
Well, at the time I was poor, you were rich.
Quite so. That is why you pretended to love me.
Poor Lord Mortlake, who only had two topics of conversation, his gout and his wife. I never could quite make out which of the two he was talking about. He used the most horrible language about them both. Why, dear author, you were silly. Lord Mortlake was never anything more to me than one of those tedious amusements, one of those utterly tedious amusement one only finds at an English country house on an English country Sunday. I don't think anyone at all morally responsible for what he or she does at an English country house.
Yes, I know lots of people think that.
Author, I loved you.
My dear Mrs. Shevely, you have always been far too clever to know anything about love.
I did love you, and you loved me too. You know you loved me. And love is a very wonderful thing. I suppose that when a man has once loved a woman, he would do anything in the world for her except continue to love her.
Yes, accept that.
I am tired of living abroad. I want to come back to London. I want to have a charming house here. I want to have a salon. If one could only teach the English how to talk and the Irish how to listen, society here would be much more civilized. Besides, I've arrived at the romantic age. When I saw you last night at the Chilterns, I knew you were the only person I ever cared for. If ever I have cared for anyone in the world, Arthur. And so, on the day of the morning that you marry me, I will give you Robert Chiltern's letter. I will give it to you now, if you promise to marry me.
Now?
Tomorrow.
Are you really serious?
I am quite serious.
I should make you a very bad husband.
Oh, I don't mind bad husbands. I've had two. They amused me immensely.
Well, you mean that you amused yourself immensely, don't you?
And what do you know about my married life?
Nothing, but I can read it like a book.
What book?
The book of numbers.
Do you think it is so charming of you to be so rude to a woman in your own house?
In the case of very fascinating women, sex is a challenge, not a defense.
I suppose that is meant for a compliment. Women are never disarmed by compliments. Men always are. That is the difference between the two sexes.
Women are never disarmed by anything as far as I know them.
So, you are going to allow Robert Chiltern, your greatest friend, to be ruined rather than marry someone who has considerable attractions left? Arthur, I thought you would have risen to some great height of self-sacrifice, and then the rest of your life you can spend contemplating your own perfections.
Oh, I do that as is. And self-sacrifice is a thing that should be put down by law. It is so demoralizing to the people for whom one sacrifices oneself for. They always go to the bad.
As if anything could demoralize Robert Chiltern. You seem to forget that I know his real character.
What you know of Robert is not his real character. It was an act of folly done in his youth. Dishonorable, I admit. Shameful, I admit. Unworthy of him, I admit. And therefore, not his true character.
How you men stand up for each other.
How you women war against each other.
I only war against one woman, Gertrude Chiltern. I hate her. I hate her now more than anything.
Because you have brought a real tragedy into her life, haven't you?
Oh, there is only one tragedy in a woman's life. The fact that her past is always her lover, and the future invariably her husband.
Lady Chiltern knows nothing of the kind of life to which you are alluding.
Do you know, a woman whose size and love is 7 3/4 never knows much about anything? Gertrude has always worn 7 3/4. That is why there was never any moral sympathy between us. Well, Arthur, I guess you may say this romantic interview can be regarded as at an end. You admit it was romantic, don't you? For the privilege of being your wife, I was ready to surrender a great prize, the climax of my diplomatic career. You declined, very well. If Robert Chiltern doesn't uphold my Argentine scheme, I expose him. Voila, tout.
But you mustn't do that. It would be vile, horrible, infamous.
Don't use big words. They mean so little. This is simply a commercial transaction, that is all. I offered to sell Robert Chiltern a certain thing, and if he won't pay me my price, he'll pay the world a greater price. There's no more to be said, and I fear I must go. Won't you shake hands?
With you? No. Your transaction with Robert Chiltern may pass as a loathsome commercial transaction of a loathsome commercial age, but you seem to have forgotten that you came here tonight to talk of love. You whose lips desecrated the word love. You to whom the thing is a book closely sealed, went this afternoon to one of the most gentle and noble women in the world to degrade her husband in her eyes, to try and put poison in her heart and bitterness in her life, to break her idol, and it may be, spoil her soul. That, I cannot forgive you. That was horrible. For that, there can be no forgiveness.
Arthur, you are unjust to me. Believe me, you are quite unjust to me. I didn't go to taunt Gertrude at all. I had no idea of doing anything of the kind when I entered. I called with Lady Markby simply to ask if an ornament, a jewel of mine that I lost somewhere last night, had been found at the Chilterns. If you don't believe me, you can ask Lady Markby. She will tell you it is true. Yes, I called, a little out of malice if you like, simply to ask if a diamond snake brooch of mine had been found. That was the origin of the whole thing.
A diamond snake brooch with a ruby?
Yes, how do you know?
Because it is found. In point of fact, I found it myself and stupidly forgot to tell the butler anything about it as I was leaving. Oh, it's in this drawer. Oh. This is the brooch, isn't it?
Yes, I'm so glad you get it back. It was a present.
Won't you wear it?
Well, certainly if you pin it in.
Grab it. Thank you.
Well,
Hook it. Hook it. Hook it. Hook it.
I'm afraid I don't know how to work this thing.
Yeah, Phipps usually does this stuff for me. So. Oh, almost had it. Almost. Ah, there we go. Beautiful. 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 Beautiful.
I never knew it could be worn as a bracelet.
Really?
Yes, but it looks beautiful on me, doesn't it?
Yes, much better than when I saw it last.
And when did you see it last?
Oh, 10 years ago on Lady Berkshire, from whom you stole it.
Oh, what do you mean?
I mean that you stole that ornament from my cousin, Mary Berkshire, to whom I gave it when she was married. Suspicion fell on a wretched servant who was sent away in disgrace. I recognized it last night. I determined to say nothing about it till I had found the thief. Well, I have found the thief now, and I have heard her own confession.
It is not true.
You know it is true. Why, the word thief is written across your face at this moment.
I will deny the whole thing from beginning to end. I will say that I've never seen this wretched thing, that it was never in my possession.
The drawback of stealing a thing, Mrs. Chevley, is that one never knows just how wonderful the thing that one steals is. You can't get that bracelet off unless you know where the spring is. And I see you don't know where the spring is. It is rather difficult to find.
You brute! You coward!
Oh! Don't use big words. They mean so little.
What are you going to do?
I am going to ring for my servant. He is an admirable servant, always comes the moment one rings for him. When he comes, I will tell him to fetch the police.
No, the police, what for?
Tomorrow, the Berkshires will prosecute you. That is what the police are for.
I will do anything in the world you want. Anything in the world.
Give me Robert Chiltern's letter.
Stop, let me have time to think.
Give me Robert Chiltern's letter.
I haven't got it with me. I will give it to you tomorrow.
You know you are lying. Give it to me at once. Is it?
Yes.
For so well-dressed a woman, Mrs. Chevely, you have moments of admirable common sense. I congratulate you.
Will you give me a glass of water?
Certainly.
Thank you. Will you help me walk my cloak?
With pleasure. Don't show it.
Thank you. I am never going to try to harm Robert Chilton again.
Fortunately, you have not the chance, Mrs. Chevely.
Well, even if I had the chance, I wouldn't. On the contrary, I am going to render him a good service.
Well, I am charmed to hear it. It is a reformation.
You know, I just couldn't bear to see so upright a gentleman, so honorable an English gentleman being so shamefully deceived and so...
Well,
I find that Lady Gertrude's dying wish and confession has strayed into my pocket.
what do you mean?
I mean, I'm going to send Robert Chiltern the love letter his wife wrote to you tonight.
Love letter?
I want you. I trust you. I am coming to you. Gertrude.
Oh, you wretched woman. Must you always be thieving? Give me back that letter. I'll take it from you by force. You shall not leave my room till I've got it. Where is it? Where is it? Show me. Where is it?
Oh, hello. Lord Boring, very late that you should show me out. Good night, Lord Boring.
It is a great nuisance. I can't find anyone in this house to talk to, and I am full of interesting information. I feel like the latest edition of something or other.
Sir Robert is still at the Foreign Office, my lord.
Lady Chiltern not down yet.
Her ladyship has not yet left her room. Miss Chiltern has just come in from riding.
Oh, that is something.
Lord Caversham has been waiting in the library some time for Sir Robert. I told him that your lordship was here.
Thank you. Would you kindly tell him I've gone?
I shall do so.
Really, I don't want to meet my father 3 days running. It is a great deal too much excitement for any son. I hope to goodness he won't come up. Fathers should be neither seen nor heard. That is the only proper basis for family life. Mothers are different. Mothers are darlings.
So, there you go. Wasting your time as usual.
My dear father, when one pays a visit, it is for the purpose of wasting other people's time, not one's own.
Have you been thinking over what I spoke to you about last night?
I have been thinking about nothing else.
Oh, you engaged to be married yet?
Not yet, but I hope to be before lunchtime.
You can have till dinner time if it would be any convenience to you.
Well, thanks awfully, but I think I'd sooner be engaged before lunch.
I never know when you're serious or not.
Neither do I, Father.
I suppose you've seen the Times this morning?
The Times? Certainly not. I only read the Morning Post. All that one should know about modern life is where the duchesses are.
You mean you haven't seen the Times' recent article on Robert Chiltern's career?
No. What does it say?
Well, what should it say? Everything complimentary. Chiltern's speech last night was the most brilliant piece of oratory ever delivered in the House of Commons since Canning.
Oh, never heard of Canning. Never wanted to. But tell me, did Chiltern uphold the scheme?
Uphold it, sir? Well, that shows how little you know of him. He denounced it roundly, and the entire system of modern political finance. The speech is the turning point in his career. As the Times said, sir, Robert Canning represents what is best in political life these days. He is a noble contrast to the lax morality so common among foreign politicians. They'll never say that about you, sir.
I certainly hope not, Father. But I am delighted at what you tell me about Robert. Thoroughly delighted. It shows he has got pluck.
Pluck? Got more than pluck, sir. He's got genius.
I prefer pluck. It is not so common nowadays as genius is.
Don't you go into politics.
My dear Father, only people who look dull ever get into the House of Commons. And only people who are dull ever succeed there.
Why don't you try to do something meaningful with your life?
I'm far too young.
Oh, I hate this affectation of youth. It's far too prevalent nowadays.
Youth isn't an affectation. Youth is an art.
Why don't you marry that pretty Miss Chiltern?
I am of a very nervous disposition, especially in the morning.
I don't suppose there's any chance that her ever accepting you.
Well, I don't know how the betting stands today.
But if she did, she'd be the prettiest fool in all England.
That is just what I should like to marry. A thoroughly sensible wife would reduce me to a state of absolute idiocy in less than 6 months.
You don't deserve it.
My dear Father, if we men marry the women we deserve, we should have a very bad time of it.
How do you do, Lord Caversham? I hope Lady Caversham is quite well.
Lady Caversham is as usual. As usual.
Morning, Miss Mabel.
And Lady Caversham's bonnets, are they at all better?
They have suffered a relapse, I'm so sorry to say.
Morning, Miss Mabel.
I hope an operation will not be necessary.
If it is, then we shall have to administer a narcotic. Otherwise, Lady Caversham would not consent to our touching a feather.
Good morning, Miss Mabel.
Oh, are you here? Of course, you understand that after you are breaking your appointment in the park, I am never going to speak to you again.
Oh, don't say that. You are the one person in London whom I really like to have to listen to me.
Lord Gordon, I never believe a single word that either you or I say to each other.
Why so? Why so, at least as far as he's concerned, that is.
Do you think you could possibly make your son behave a little better occasionally, just as a change?
Regret to say, Miss Chiltern, I have absolutely no influence over my son. If I did, I know what I would have him do.
I'm afraid that he is one of those terribly weak natures that is not susceptible to influence.
He's heartless. He's quite heartless.
It seems to me that I'm a little in the way here.
It is very good for you to be in the way and to know what people say of you behind your back.
I don't at all like knowing what people say of me behind my back. It makes me far too conceited.
With that, I'm afraid I really must bid you good morning.
Oh, I hope you're not going to leave me all alone with Lord Goring, especially at such an early hour of the day.
Well, can't take him with me to Downing Street. It's not the Prime Minister's day for seeing the unemployed.
People who don't keep their appointments in the park are horrid.
Detestable.
I'm glad you admit it. But I wish you wouldn't look so pleased about it.
I can't help it. I always look pleased when I'm with you.
Then I suppose it is my duty to remain with you.
Of course it is.
Well, my duty is a thing I never do, on principle. It always depresses me. So I'm afraid I must leave you.
Oh, please don't. I have something very particular to say to you.
Oh, is it a proposal?
Well, yes, it is. I am bound to say it is.
I am so glad. That makes the second today.
The second today? What conceited ass has been impertinent enough to dare to propose to you before I have proposed to you?
Tommy Trafford, of course. It is one of Tommy's days for proposing. He always proposes on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the season.
You didn't accept him, I hope.
I make it a rule never to accept Tommy Trafford. That is why he goes on proposing. Of course, as you didn't turn up this morning, I very nearly said yes. It would have been an excellent lesson, both for him and for you if I had. It would have taught you both better manners.
Bother, Tommy Trafford. Tommy is a silly little ass, all right? I love you.
I know. And I think you might have mentioned it before. I'm sure I've given you heaps of opportunities.
Mabel, do be serious. Please, be serious.
That is the sort of thing a man always says to a girl before he has married her. Never says it after.
Mabel, I have told you that I love you. Can't you love me a little in return?
You silly Arthur. If you knew anything about anything, which you don't, you would know that I adore you. Everyone in London knows it except you. It is a public scandal, the way I adore you. I have been going about for the last 6 months telling the whole of society that I adore you. I wonder if you consent to have anything to say to me. I have no character left at all. Or at least, I'm so happy I'm quite sure I have no character left at all.
Did you know? I was awfully afraid of being refused.
But you never have been refused yet by anybody, have you, Arthur? I can't imagine anyone refusing you.
Well, of course, I am not nearly good enough for you, Mabel.
I am so glad, darling. I was afraid you were.
And I'm a little over 30.
Dear, you look weeks younger than that.
How sweet of you to say so. And it is only fair to tell you that I am fearfully extravagant.
But so am I, Arthur. So, we're sure to agree. And now I must go and talk to Gertrude.
Oh, must you really?
Yes.
Then do tell her I want to talk to her particularly. I have been waiting here all the morning to see either her or Robert.
You mean to say you didn't come here expressly to propose to me?
No, that was a flash of genius.
Your first.
My last.
I'm delighted to hear it. Now, don't stir. I'll be back in 5 minutes. And don't fall into any temptations while I'm away.
Dear Mabel, while you are away, there are none. Makes me horribly dependent on you.
Good morning, dear. How pretty you are looking. How pale you are looking, Gertrude. It is most becoming. Good morning, Lord Goring.
Good morning, Lady Chiltern.
I shall be in the conservatory under the second palm tree on the left.
Second on the left.
Yes, the usual palm tree.
Lady Chiltern, I have a certain amount of very good news to tell you. Mrs. Cheveley gave me up Robert's letter last night, and I burned it. Robert is safe.
Safe? Oh, I am so glad to hear of that. What a good friend you are to him, to us.
Well, now there is only one person who could be said to be in any danger.
Who is that?
Yourself.
I? In danger? What do you mean?
Well, danger is too great a word. It is a word I should not have used, but I have to admit I do have something to tell you that may distress you, that terribly distresses me. Yesterday evening, you wrote me a very beautiful, womanly letter asking me for my help. You wrote to me as one of your oldest friends, as one of your husband's oldest friends. Mrs. Chevely stole that letter from my rooms.
Why should she not have it? What use is it to her?
I will be quite frank with you, Lady Chiltern. Mrs. Chevely puts a certain construction on that letter and proposes to send it to your husband.
But what construction could she put on it? Oh, not that. If I, in danger and wanting your assistance, propose to come to you, that you may assist me, advise me. Oh, are there women so horrible as that? And she proposes to send it to my husband? Tell me what happened. Tell me all that happened.
Mrs. Chevely was concealed in a room adjoining my library without my knowledge. I thought that the person that was waiting in that room to see me was yourself. Robert came in unexpectedly. A chair or something fell in the room. He forced his way in, and he discovered her. We had a terrible scene. He left me in anger. I still thought it was you. At the end of everything, Mrs. Chevely got possession of your letter. She stole it. When or how, I don't know.
At what hour did this happen?
At 10:30, and now I propose that we tell your husband the whole thing at once.
You want me to tell Robert that the woman you expected was not Mrs. Chevely, but myself? That it was I whom you thought was concealed in a room at your house at 10:30 at night? You want me to tell him that?
I think it is better that he should know the exact truth.
Oh, I couldn't.
May I do it?
No.
You are wrong, Lady Chiltern.
No. The letter must be intercepted. How can I do it? Letters arrive for him at every moment of the day. His secretaries open them and hand them to him. I cannot ask the servants to help me. It would be impossible. Oh, why don't you tell me what to do?
Pray be calm, Lady Chiltern, and answer the questions I am going to put to you. You said his secretaries open his letters.
Yes?
Who is with him today? Mr. Trafford, isn't it?
No, Mr. Montfort, I think.
You can trust him?
How should I know?
He would do what you asked him, wouldn't he?
I suppose so.
He could recognize your letter without reading it, couldn't he, by the color?
I suppose so.
Is he in the house now?
Yes.
And I will see him myself and tell him that a certain letter written on pink paper is to be forwarded to Robert, and that at all costs it must not reach him. Oh! Robert is coming upstairs with a letter in his hand. It has reached him already.
You have saved his life. What have you done with mine?
I want you, I trust you, I am coming to you. Gertrude, oh my love, is this true? Do you indeed want me? If so, it was for me to come to you, not for you to write of coming to me. Do you want me, Gertrude?
Yes. Yes.
Then why did you not add you love me?
Because I loved you.
Gertrude, you don't know how I feel. When Montfort passed me your letter across the table, he had opened it without suspecting it, I hope. And I've read it, and I didn't feel that public disgrace or punishment was in store for me. I only thought you loved me still.
There is no public shame in store for you, nor any public disgrace. Mrs. Chevely has given to Lord Goring the document that was in her possession, and he has destroyed it.
Are you sure about this, Gertrude?
Yes, he has just told me.
Then I'm safe. What a great thing in the world to be safe. And now tell me, how did Arthur destroy my letter?
He burned it.
I wish I had been able to see the sin of my youth burning to ashes. How many men in modern life would love to see their sin burning the white ashes before them? Is Arthur still here?
Yes, he's in the conservatory.
And I'm so happy that I made the speech last night. I made it thinking public disgrace was in store for me, but it has not been so.
Public honor has been the result.
Think so. Fear so. Although I'm safe from detection, and although every piece of evidence has been burned against me, suppose I should retire from public life.
Oh, you should do that. It is your duty to do that.
There's much to surrender.
No, it will be much to gain.
And you would be happy living abroad with me, away from public life. You would have no regrets.
Oh, none, Robert.
And your ambition. What about your ambition? You used to be ambitious for me.
Oh, my ambition. I have none now, but that we two may love each other. It was your ambition that led you astray. Let us not talk about ambition.
Arthur, I have to thank you for what you have done for me, and I don't know how I can repay you.
Oh, my dear fellow, I'll tell you at once. At the present moment, under the usual palm tree, there was a lovely young lady.
Lord Caversham.
Oh, that admirable father of mine really makes a habit of turning up at the wrong moment. It is very heartless of him.
Good morning, Lady Chilton. Good morning, Chilton. And congratulations to you on your brilliant speech. I've just come from the Prime Minister, and you are to have a seat in the cabinet.
A seat in the cabinet?
Well, you deserve it, too. I mean, you have everything that we want in political life these days. You've got high trustworthiness, high moral tone, and high principles. Everything that you have not got, sir. Never will have.
I don't like principles, Father. I prefer prejudices.
I fear I can't accept this offer, Lord Caversham. I have made up my mind to decline it.
Decline?
It is my intention to at once to retire from public life.
Decline it, sir? Retire from public life? I've never heard such damn nonsense in the higher course of my existence. Beg your pardon, Lady Chilton. Beg your pardon, Chilton. Wipe that grin off your face, sir. Lady Chilton, you're a sensible woman. You're the most sensible woman I know. You're the most sensible woman in London. Won't you kindly prevent your husband from making it, from doing? Won't you kindly do that, Lady Chilton?
I believe my husband is right in his determination, Lord Caversham. I approve of it.
You approve of it? Good heavens.
I admire him for it. I admire him immensely for it. I have never admired him so much than I do in this moment. You will write your letter to the Prime Minister, won't you? Don't hesitate about it, Robert.
I suppose I should write it at once. Such offers are not repeated. I will ask you to excuse me, Lord Caversham.
I may come with you, may I not?
Yes, Gertrude.
What is wrong with this family? Something up here, I don't know. Idiocy, maybe? Heredity, probably. Both of them, too. Wife as well as the husband. Sad. Very sad. I don't understand it.
It is not idiocy, Father, I assure you.
What is it then?
It is simply what is called nowadays a high moral tone. That is all, Father.
Oh, I hate these damn names. That's the same thing we used to call idiocy 50 years ago. Oh, I shan't stay in this house any longer.
Oh, just go in there for a moment, Father. There's someone I want you to talk to under the usual palm tree. In the conservatory, there's someone I want you to talk to.
About what?
About me.
Oh, not a subject upon which much eloquence is possible.
No, Father, but the lady is like me. She doesn't care much for eloquence in others. She thinks it a little loud. Lady Chiltern, why are you playing Mrs. Shevely's cards?
I don't understand you.
Mrs. Shevely made an attempt to ruin your husband, either to drive him from public life or to make him adopt a dishonorable position. From the latter tragedy you saved him, the former you are now thrusting on him. Why should you do him the wrong Mrs. Shevely tried to do and failed?
Lord Goring.
Lady Chiltern, allow me. You wrote me a letter last night, in which you said you trusted me and wanted my help. Well, now is the moment when you really want my help. Now is the time when you have got to trust me, to trust in my counsel and judgment. You love Robert. If you want to kill his love for you, what sort of existence will he have if you rob him of the fruits of his ambition? If you take from him the splendor of a great political career, if you close the doors of public life against him, if you condemn him to sterile failure, he who was made for triumph and success, why should you scourge him with rods for a sin done in his youth, before he knew you, before he knew himself? Don't make any terrible mistake, Lady Chiltern.
But it is my husband himself who wishes to retire from public life. It was he who first said so.
Robert would do anything, wreck his whole career as he is on the brink of doing now. He is making for you a terrible sacrifice. Do not allow him to make a sacrifice so great. If you do, you will live to repent it bitterly. We men and women are not made to accept such sacrifices from each other. We are not worthy of them. And besides, Robert has been punished enough.
We have both been punished. I set him up too high.
Do not for that reason now set him down too low. If he has fallen from his altar, do not thrust him into the mire. Failure to Robert would be the very mire of shame. Power is his passion. He would lose everything, even his power to feel love. Your husband's life is at this moment in your hands. Your husband's love is in your hands. Don't mar both for him.
Gertrude, here's a draft of my letter. Shall I read it to you?
Let me see it.
What are you doing?
I will not ruin your life for you, nor see you ruin it as a sacrifice to me, a useless sacrifice.
Gertrude, Gertrude.
You can forget, and easily forget, and I forgive. I see that now.
My wife, Arthur, I owe you so much.
Oh, no. Your debt is to Lady Chiltern, not to me.
But Arthur, tell me what you were going to tell me just as Lord Caversham came in.
Oh, Robert, you are your sister's guardian, and I would like your consent to my marriage with her. That is all.
I am so glad. I am so glad.
Thank you, Lady Chiltern.
My sister to be your wife?
Yes.
I'm very sorry, Arthur, but that is quite out of the question. I have to think of Mabel's future happiness, and I don't think her happiness will be safe in your hands, and I cannot have her sacrificed.
Sacrificed?
Yes, utterly sacrificed. Loveless marriages are horrible, but there is one thing worse than an absolute loveless marriage. A marriage where there is love, but on one side only. Faith, but on one side only. Devotion, but on one side only. And of which the two hearts, one is sure to be broken.
But I love Mabel. No other woman has any place in my life.
Robert, if they love each other, why should they not be married?
Arthur cannot bring Mabel the love she requires.
What reason have you for saying that?
Do you really require me to tell you?
Certainly I do.
As you choose. When I called on you yesterday evening, I found Mrs. Shepley concealed in one of your rooms. It was between 10 and 11 o'clock at night. I wish not to say anything more. Your relations with Mrs. Shepley, as I told you last night, have nothing whatsoever to do with me. The fascination she exercised over you seems to have returned. You told me yesterday that she was a woman that pure and stainless, a woman whom you respected and honored. That may be so, but I cannot have Mabel in your hands. It will be wrong of me. It will be unjust, infamously unjust to her.
I have nothing more to say.
Robert, it was not Mrs. Shepley whom Lord Goring expected last night.
Not Mrs. Shepley. Who
Lady,
was it then?
Lady Chiltern.
It was your own wife. Robert, yesterday afternoon, Lord Goring told me that if ever I was in need of his assistance, I could write to him, as he was our oldest and best friend. Later on, after that terrible scene in this room, I wrote to him telling him that I had need of him, that I trusted him, that I was coming to him for his help and assistance. Yes, that letter. I didn't go to Lord Goring's after all. I felt that it was from ourselves alone that help can come. Pride made me think that. Mrs. Shepley stole the letter and sent it anonymously to you that you should think. I cannot tell you what she wished you to think.
What? Had I fallen so low in your eyes that you thought for a moment that I could doubt your goodness? Gertrude, you are to me the white image of all things good, and sin can never touch you. Arthur, you can go to Mabel, and you have my best wishes. Stop. There's no name at the beginning of this letter. The brilliant Mrs. Shepley didn't seem to have noticed that. There should be a name.
Let me write yours. It is you I trust and need. You and none else.
Well, really, Lady Chiltern, I think I should have back my own letter.
No, you shall have Mabel.
Well, I certainly hope she hasn't changed her mind. It's been nearly 20 minutes since I saw her last.
Lord Goring, I find your father's conversation much more improving than yours. I'm only going to talk to Lord Caversham in the future, and always under the usual palm tree.
What does this mean? You don't mean to say that this lovely, charming young lady has been so foolish as to accept you?
Certainly, Father, and Chiltern's been wise enough to accept the seat in the cabinet.
Oh, glad to hear that, Chiltern. Congratulations. If the country does not go to the dogs or the radicals, we shall have you as Prime Minister someday.
Luncheon is on the table, my lady.
You'll stop to luncheon, Lord Caversham, won't you?
It would be my pleasure, after which I'll take you with me to Downing Street, Chiltern. You have a great future ahead of you. Great future. Wish I could say that to you, sir. But I'm afraid your future will have to be entirely domestic.
Oh, yes, Father, I prefer it domestic.
And if you don't make this young lady an ideal husband, I'll cut you off with a shilling.
An ideal husband. Oh, I don't think I should like that. It sounds like something in the next world.
What would you have him be then?
He can be what he chooses. All I want is to be a real wife to him.
Upon my word, there's a good deal of common sense in that, Lady Chiltern.
Aren't you coming in, Robert?
Gertrude, is it love that you feel for me, or is it pity, merely?
It is love, Robert. Love and only love. For both of us, a new life is beginning.
Thank you.